I am very happy tonight that I have a good number of my team members here, and it's probably it's kind of it's almost a I'm trying to get the right word, but the bottom line is this is the epicenter of Freddie Gray, and I have tonight with me a number of my experts, and so I think it's appropriate that that they be here tonight to assist Seth and Nola and I in answering some of your questions. So let me ask T. Bowman as Deputy Monitor. Stan. In fact, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
I'm Gabriela Wasilewski.
I'm T. Baldwin, Deputy Monitor.
Good evening, Brian Maxey.
Good evening, Hassan Aiden, Deputy Monitor.
Seth Rosen.
Seth Rosenthal, Deputy Monitor.
Nola Joyce.
We came on the scene basically in 2018. We're moving to our third year. And those of you who remember Freddie Gray, you know how the consent decree came about. I mean, the police department was in really, really bad shape. It was a dysfunctional organization. And we recognized early on that we essentially had to help the department rebuild itself from the ground up. And so the first thing that we helped the department do, along with the Department of Justice, was to help them redo their policies. And once the policies were done, and some will still be in the works, but most of them have been done by now, the next step was to train the police officers on the new policies. Now, why was all this important? Well, the real reason, the big reason for the consent decree is we all recognize that in order to address the community's problems, you have to have some relationship of trust between the department and the community. Everyone wants effective policing, but we want effective policing to be done the right way, that is, in a lawful manner. And it makes sense because if you think about it, if the police are going to be able to solve crimes, to protect the neighborhoods that they're working in, they have to have some feedback from the folks in the community. And with Freddie Gray and even in the years before, it was clear that this department had engaged in so much misconduct that very few people had any trust in the department, and so there was no feedback back and forth. The hope is that as we help this department rebuild itself in a constitutional way, that there will be some level of trust built between the community and the department, and we hopefully can have some of these crimes solved that affect all of us. So let me turn this over to Seth, let him talk a little bit about the third-year monitoring plan and maybe training.
Okay. You know, I'm going to hold off on the third-year monitoring plan. I think what we'll do is we'll take a few minutes just to talk about the progress that BPD is making and the challenges they continue to face as we move forward with the consent decree process. Open it up for questions because we really want to get your questions and comments on the progress or lack of progress that you all see. And then we can talk about what to expect in the next year. I'm going to talk very quickly about training because that is I won't say the lion's share, but that has been a focus of the reform effort over the course of the past year and will continue to be a focus of the reform effort in the coming year. Over the past year, as Ken said, BPD started by revising its policies with technical assistance from experts both on our team and with the Department of Justice. And we do have one Department of Justice person here, Earl Saunders. He can raise his hand, but we often work in tandem with folks from the Department of Justice to provide BPD with technical assistance. But once those use of force once those policies in certain areas were completed, BPD started to draft curriculum to train the officers on those policies. The first dedicated consent decree reform training occurred between May of 2019 and the end of October of 2019, and it focused on one of the key areas of the consent decree, which is use of force. So all the officers department-wide, over 2,100 officers have now been trained on new use of force policies, which, as the consent decree requires, emphasize de-escalation first and emphasize the use of force only that is necessary, reasonable, and proportionate to the threat posed. That's really the central focus of the training on use of force. And, from our perspective, the use of force training was done quite effectively. In the past, what the police department has done is basically have somebody sit in front of a classroom, kind of like we're sitting in front of you now, and just talking at you, right? Which is not a particularly effective way to teach adults, to train adults. What social science has shown is that the best way to teach adults is through hands-on, active, scenario-based learning, right? And so the use of force in-service training, which took place over the course of 2 days, focused on the use of scenarios.